The bowl shattered before I even touched it. It was still spinning on the tile, shards dancing, soup splashed across the cabinets like blood. My ears were ringing, but not from the crash. From what she said before she threw it. I never loved you, Darvin. You were just the safest option. There. That's what cracked the bowl. And me. She didn't scream it. She whispered it. Like it was some quiet mercy. Like she'd been doing me a favor by keeping it in for 20 years. 20 years. Of me folding her laundry. Of holding her hand through surgeries. Of standing by her at 3 funerals. Of giving up 2 job promotions to stay close to her family. And she stood there barefoot in our kitchen, soup on her wrist, jaw locked like I was the villain here. Like I had dared to make dinner without asking first. Because that's what started it. I made soup. That was the crime. Mushroom barley. Her least favorite, apparently, though she used to love it. At least I thought she did. I remember I just stood there. I didn't ask why. I didn't yell or argue. I just looked at the spot where the bowl had hit the ground. It was the same spot our dog, Toonie, used to nap in before he died. He'd bark like crazy when we argued. He would have barked tonight. But there was no dog. Just silence. Just her words replaying in my head like a bad voicemail I couldn't delete. You were just the safest option. That sentence didn't sound like something new. It sounded practiced. Like she'd been rehearsing it in the mirror. Maybe she said it to someone else first. Someone braver. Someone exciting. And suddenly it hit me. She'd already moved on. This wasn't the start of a fight. This was the end of a performance. Everything after that moment was a blur. Her phone buzzing on the counter. Me reaching for it, hand shaking. Her lunging faster than I expected. The way her face changed when I got a glimpse of the lock screen. A man's name. A heart emoji. And a text. He's still there? Want me to wait? I don't even remember grabbing her phone. My hand moved on its own, like some desperate animal clawing at the last proof that I wasn't insane. She tried to snatch it back, but I'd already seen enough. The screen lit up again, same name. Kip. Who the hell names their kid Kip? Who the hell cheats with someone named Kip? Another message popped up right as she was yelling at me. Let me know when the soup show is over. I'll heat you up something real. I swear I almost dropped the phone right then and there. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even breathing properly. I was just breaking, silently, from the inside out. And all she did was roll her eyes like I was the one being dramatic. She told me to stop going through her things like some insecure teenager, and that this conversation could have been avoided if I just made spaghetti like a normal husband. That's a real quote. That's what she said. I kept staring at the screen, scrolling through the messages, feeling like someone had taken a baseball bat to my spine. They'd been talking for over a year. A year. There were photos, videos, screenshots of dates, hotels, inside jokes. Stuff she never even shared with me in 2 decades. She used to hate texting. Said it gave her anxiety. But for him, she was a poet. She wrote things to him like, "You make me feel young again, and being around you reminds me who I really am." Who she really is. What does that even mean? Was I just the shell she had to hide in while the real her waited to crawl out at night? And then I saw the message that broke me in half. It was from last week, right after I'd driven her to her mammogram appointment and bought her that lemon cake she likes. She'd sent him a photo of me in the parking lot while I was loading the groceries. The caption read, "This is the man who thinks I'm still his." I dropped her phone. I didn't throw it. I didn't smash it. I just let it fall to the floor like a piece of trash I couldn't bear to hold. I looked up at her, expecting, I don't even know what. An apology? A breakdown? Something human? But she just stood there, arms crossed, like I was wasting her time. Then she had the audacity to say, "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." That's when I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, it wasn't. It was the kind of laugh that happens when your soul starts leaking out of your mouth because there's nowhere else for it to go. I asked her, "So how did you want me to find out, Marcy? Did you want to put on a slideshow? Invite him to dinner? Were you hoping I'd catch you in the middle of something so you could finally feel alive again?" She said nothing, just grabbed a towel, started wiping the soup off the counter like we were just cleaning up after an awkward dinner party. I stood there for maybe 10 more seconds before I realized. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a decision she'd made, one quiet day at a time, over years, to turn me into a stranger in my own home. And I let her. That's what hurt most. I didn't sleep that night. I don't even think I blinked. I lay on the couch with a thin blanket, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like it was mocking me, like it was the only thing still turning in my life. Marcy had gone upstairs after muttering some half-hearted, "We'll talk in the morning," as if we were just having a disagreement about a Netflix password. Meanwhile, I lay there trying to remember when she stopped calling me babe, when she stopped reaching for my hand in the car, when she stopped wearing her wedding ring. That morning, she left for work like nothing happened. She didn't look at me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just grabbed her keys and walked out the front door, like I was her roommate. Or worse, like I was her burden. I wasn't even planning to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But after she left, I walked upstairs like a ghost, drawn by something I couldn't explain. I stood in our bedroom, staring at the dresser. Her perfume still sat there, the one she told me gave her migraines, which is why she never wore it when we were together. But suddenly it was half empty. Of course it was. She just didn't want to smell like it around me. That's when I noticed the envelope. It was tucked between two sweaters in the bottom drawer. Thick, off-white, sealed but not labeled. And I know what you're thinking. I shouldn't have opened it. But when your world's already cracked open and bleeding, what's one more wound? Inside were photos. Printed photos. Her and him. Not selfies, not quick snaps. These were framed shots, taken by someone else. Them on a beach, arms wrapped around each other. Her in a red dress I'd never seen. Him holding her waist like she was his. One photo had a handwritten date. Tulum, March 2022. She'd told me she was going on a yoga retreat. I'd even driven her to the airport. I'd kissed her goodbye. I'd told her I'd miss her. She never even looked back. The envelope also had something else, a handwritten note. Not from him. From her. It was addressed, for when it's time. I sat on the edge of the bed and read every word like I was decoding a crime scene. It said she hadn't felt alive in over a decade. That she stayed for comfort. That she hoped one day I would understand. That I deserved someone who matched my emotional intensity. That one crushed me. She ended it with, "I don't regret the years, but I can't live a half-life anymore. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." So that's what I was to her. Half a life. And yet, she was still here. Sleeping in my house. Eating my food. Using my name. Like she hadn't already packed up emotionally and walked out. That's when I realized something. She was waiting for me to break it off. To be the one to end it so she could keep the story clean. "He left me," she'd say. "I tried, but he gave up." No. She wanted out. She'd get it. But not the way she expected. Not quietly. Not gently. Not with clean hands and a tearful goodbye. I decided right then. I was going to make her regret every minute she spent planning my replacement. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. I didn't even bring up the envelope. That would have given her exactly what she wanted. A dramatic scene she could twist into a story where I was the unhinged husband, the bitter man who couldn't let go. No, I stayed quiet. Too quiet. And that silence, that new stillness in me, was the first thing she noticed. She came home that evening with a brown bag of groceries like she hadn't shattered me less than 24 hours earlier. She even asked me, casually, if I could take the trash out before it gets all funky again. I nodded. That was it. Just a nod. And when I turned back to chopping vegetables, I swear I saw her eyes narrow like she didn't recognize me. That was the first crack in her composure. The first flicker of unease. And I fed it. Over the next few days, I became something else. Not angry. Not cold. Just unreadable. I didn't bring up Kip. I didn't ask where she was going when she ran errands. I didn't even flinch when she locked her phone before setting it down face first on the counter. I just went about my days like a man slowly packing his dignity into boxes she couldn't see. But behind the curtain, I was moving fast. I made an appointment with a lawyer. Her name was Daria, and she didn't waste time pretending this was going to be easy. I laid it all out. The messages, the photos, the envelope, even the text from her affair partner asking if the soup show was over. Daria didn't flinch. She told me two things: don't tip my hand, and start protecting my assets immediately. So I did. I opened a separate bank account. I moved half of what I legally could, just enough to not raise alarms. I scanned and backed up every document. I reviewed our joint accounts and realized, to my horror, that Marcy had already started bleeding money out in tiny withdrawals labeled as health and wellness or reimbursement. She was preparing to vanish with more than just her yoga mat. But the part that gutted me, the part that nearly made me rip it all up and scream, was discovering that she'd cashed out my birthday savings fund. I'd been quietly putting away money every year to surprise her with a trip to Maine. That place she always talked about with stars in her eyes. A little bed and breakfast by the water. Sunset wine. Old books. A real escape. Gone. Every cent labeled as tuition payment. We don't have kids. That was the moment I knew she didn't just fall out of love. She never loved me in the way I loved her. I was her safety net, her emotional doormat, her backup plan in case life didn't deliver better. And now that her better had a name and a hotel keycard, I was being phased out like outdated software. So I smiled. Smiled when she asked if I wanted her to grab almond milk. Smiled when she said she had a girls' dinner on Friday. Smiled when she mentioned she'd be working late all next week. And I lied. I told her I was proud of her for prioritizing herself. She didn't know I'd already rented a storage unit across town. She didn't know I'd recorded the last 5 weeks of her calls using synced cloud backups she forgot I could access. She didn't know I'd finally remembered what true silence feels like. Not the silence of despair, but the silence of strategy. Let her play out her affair. Let her keep thinking I'm too weak to act. Because when the trap closed, I wasn't going to yell. I was going to leave the door open behind me and make sure she watched it close. She wore that green dress, the one I hadn't seen in years. She used to joke that it made her feel like trouble. I remember buying it for her when we were in Charleston for our 15th anniversary. Back when she still leaned on my shoulder during plane rides. Back when she still looked at me like I was her world. I guess now it was just a dress for brunch with friends. At least that's what she told me. Saturday morning, she floated around the house humming. Makeup on. Nails done. Phone buzzing more than usual, though she kept muting it every time she passed me. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't ask who she was meeting. I didn't ask anything, and that, apparently, was enough to unsettle her. She paused at the front door like she wanted to say something, maybe test the waters, but I gave her nothing. Just a gentle nod and a have fun. She hesitated for half a second, then slipped out into the fall sunlight, like a woman with nothing to hide. But she did. God, she did. And so did I. I waited exactly 11 minutes after she left. That's how long it took her to pull onto the highway and lose any suspicion that I might be following. But I wasn't following. I didn't have to. I'd already cloned her location through a tool I was advised, carefully, was still within legal rights as long as the device was on our shared phone plan. She'd given me years of loyalty, right? Might as well cash in what little was left. Kip's name lit up the app before they even reached the restaurant. And I didn't rush. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't even going to step inside. I just needed one thing. Confirmation. Not for court. Not even for revenge. For me. Because even after all the messages and lies and photos, there was still some decaying part of my soul that wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding. That maybe it wasn't as physical, as intimate, as deep as it looked. That hope died the moment I saw them through the window. Not just holding hands. Not just laughing. He kissed her forehead. Forehead. The kind of kiss you give someone when you know them. When you belong to them. When the world has already accepted the two of you as one unit. It wasn't lust. It wasn't a fling. It was something she built on top of me. Around me. While I was still alive in the center of the wreckage. She leaned into him like I'd never existed. I snapped a photo. Not for evidence. For closure. For my own twisted sense of reality check. And then I walked away before they could even spot me. The wind felt colder suddenly, like it had just learned the truth with me. Like it wasn't ready for the lie to collapse either. When she came home later, she tossed her purse on the couch and told me the brunch was lovely. Said Trina brought her new boyfriend, and Cassie still couldn't pick a career lane. I nodded. I smiled. I even asked if they took pictures. She lied straight to my face and said, "Not this time, too much gossiping." And I wondered, in that exact moment, how many years she'd been able to lie that effortlessly. But I kept my voice steady, like I was asking about the weather. "Cool," I said. "So who's Kip?" That one word, just one, changed the temperature in the room. Her face paled, like blood just walked out of her body. She didn't answer right away. She blinked once, then twice, like she was trying to reboot. "What?" she finally asked, too quickly, too defensively. And that told me everything. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I just handed her my phone. Screen unlocked. Location history open. Photo ready. Timestamp clear. She stared at it. Then at me. Then back at it. And for the first time in over a year, she didn't have a script. No excuses. No spinning. Just silence. She sat down like her legs gave out. And all I said was, "You lied to the wrong person, Marcy." Then I walked upstairs. She called my name once, barely a whisper, but I didn't answer. That was the first time in our marriage that I finally understood who had power in the silence. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, she didn't speak. She made coffee, stood in the kitchen like a stranger, and avoided eye contact like I was some ghost that had wandered into her home. I didn't press her. I didn't need to. Because she wasn't panicking out of guilt. She was panicking because she had no idea what came next. And people like Marcy only function when they're in control. Later that day, I found her in the bedroom staring into her closet. She was just standing there, arms limp at her sides, like she couldn't decide what to wear or who to be. I leaned against the doorframe and said the one thing I knew would get under her skin more than anything else. "You're still wearing my name. I wonder how long that'll last." She turned slowly, like she couldn't believe I had the nerve. But her voice cracked when she tried to fire back. "You don't understand," she began, but I cut her off. "I understand perfectly. I just didn't want to before." She didn't chase me when I walked out. That's how I knew she was still deciding which version of herself to commit to. The faithful wife trying to make amends, or the brave woman finally living her truth, with Kip the human espresso shot. Either way, I was no longer interested in being her background character. That same afternoon, I contacted HR at her workplace, anonymously, carefully, without accusations. I asked a simple question. "Do you have policies around undisclosed interoffice relationships between management and clients?" Because I'd done my research. Kip wasn't just her fling. He was a supplier, a contracted rep for the regional accounts, which meant every business dinner, every work trip, every after-hours meetup, all of it was quietly unethical, possibly even grounds for investigation. I didn't want her fired. I didn't even want revenge in the classic sense. I just wanted one thing, for her to stop thinking she could live a double life without consequences. By nightfall, I'd already drafted my side of the divorce filing. I wasn't going to serve her yet. Not until one last detail fell into place. Because I'd just received a message of my own. From someone I never expected. Kip's wife. Her name was Rena. That's all the message said at first. A simple, cold, polite sentence from a woman who had clearly rehearsed those words before pressing send. "We should talk. I'm his wife." No accusations, no drama, just facts. And somehow, that hit harder than all the rage I'd been holding inside. Rena and I agreed to meet at a neutral place, some low-traffic park on the edge of town. The air smelled like wet leaves and tension. She wore sunglasses even though the sky was overcast, and she didn't smile when she saw me. She just handed me a manila envelope, thicker than mine, and sat down on the bench like this was a transaction, not a meeting. "He's been cheating for years," she said flatly. "You're not the first husband I've met." That sentence knocked the air out of me. Not the first? She didn't elaborate much, but what she did say was enough. Apparently, Kip had a habit. Married women, mostly older than him. Ones who thought no one else saw them anymore. Ones who still wore their wedding rings, but only out of habit, not love. He preyed on the invisible. And Marcy? She wasn't his prize. She was a pattern. The envelope had receipts. Literal receipts. Hotel bookings. Venmo payments. Screenshots from apps I'd never even heard of. Kip was running multiple women at once. All of them convinced they were different. All of them sold the same fantasy. He even had a pet name he reused. Angel Face. That one was scribbled on the back of a hotel envelope Marcy had kept hidden in her sock drawer. I sat there, listening to Rena calmly, and something inside me finally shifted. Not into rage. Into clarity. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about how far someone can twist the truth just to avoid admitting their life is hollow. When I got home, Marcy was already in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up, clearly waiting for me to say something, to keep playing my role in her little theater of denial. But I didn't speak. I just slid her own envelope across the table. She opened it, confused. Inside, a copy of the hotel receipt she'd shared with Kip, and beside it, a copy of the same receipt, same date, different room number, this time paid for by another woman, with Kip's name on both. Marcy stared at it. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She looked like she'd been sucker punched by the truth. And in that moment, I realized something that almost made me feel sorry for her. She didn't just lose me. She lost her fantasy. She wasn't Kip's soulmate. She was just a temporary distraction from whatever life he hated in himself. Same as the others. I waited until she finally looked up at me, eyes full of questions, and all I said was, "You thought you were running towards something better, but you were just standing in line." Then I turned around and walked out of the house. And this time, I left the door open behind me on purpose. It's been 3 months since I walked out that door. 3 months since I stopped begging for answers I already knew. 3 months since I stopped waiting for someone to love me the way I love them. I never moved back into that house. I let her keep it, not out of kindness, but because it felt more like a monument to lies than a home. I took the only things that still mattered: my books, my records, a couple of old photos of my parents, and my dignity. The divorce moved faster than I expected. She didn't fight much. I think part of her was relieved. Not because she wanted to be with Kip. She never brought him up again, not even in the paperwork, but because she couldn't look at me without being reminded of the person she'd chosen to become. The ring? She left it on the kitchen counter. No box, no note. Just sitting there, tilted slightly, like it knew it had failed its purpose. Rena and I stayed in touch, oddly enough. Nothing romantic. Just two strangers who both survived the same emotional storm, helping each other rebuild in silence. There's something oddly healing about talking to someone who doesn't need the whole backstory, because they already live their own version of it. Last week, I moved into a small place near the coast. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, lots of windows, and just enough space for peace. I've started painting again. Nothing serious, just messy colors on canvas that make no sense to anyone but me. And for once, that's enough. I ran into an old friend at a coffee shop the other day. They asked me if I was okay. I told them I was still healing, still learning. But I smiled when I said it, because it was true. I used to think the worst thing in the world was being betrayed. It's not. The worst thing is losing yourself in the process of keeping someone who was never really yours. But now I wake up without needing to check her side of the bed. I make soup without worrying if it's the right kind. And every day, I feel a little more like the man I was always supposed to become. Free.